So this Charter Act of 1817, what happened is, uh, so this Charter Act of 1817, Lord Bentinck appointed Macaulay. So you know Macaulay, Lord Macaulay, and the education scheme. If you don't remember, then you are not uh, neither Pol.Science or history graduate. So English education in India was based on Charter Act of 1817. Then Lord Bentinck, okay, he appointed Macaulay to look into this education system in India. So now what happens? English medium was introduced as a language of instruction. So when English medium was introduced as a language of instruction, this was supported by Rajaram Mohan Rai. Rajaram Mohan Rai supported for English medium of instruction, whereas Gandhi opposed for English medium of instruction. He meant for vernacular language of instruction. I'm just saying this is not part of this, but it makes sense if you think about the connect little bit history, because you cannot divide the national movements saying this is, oh, this is a historical part, this is a political part, or this is an economic part. But the national movement as in makes sense if spoken from all these spheres, historical, social or political spheres. So Christian missionaries, other than spreading or converting the Christianship or converting the people into Christianity, they also spread English education. So Rajaram Mohan supported this type, Christian missionary type of English education also. So the English medium as schools and part of conversions, Christian missionaries did this. Then next comes this missionary schools, this large amount of missionary schools have been established in Northeast India. So if you look now, Northeast India, the most of the cottage schools or cotton colleges, etc., these Christian missionaries have established those schools and they spread education. Now, important one is Hunter Commission. So Hunter Commission came up with few suggestions or few policies in education. So this basically deals with elementary education. So elementary education need to be developed with vocational courses. So they put up this proposal for elementary education shall be developed along with vocational courses and management of primary education by the local boards. Now, local boards have been given this power to manage primary education. Earlier, the local boards or the local institutions were not been given space neither in social or political sphere, but now rather here with the outcry or rather to look into the things, the local boards have been given permission to look into the primary education. Then funding of education to be entrusted with the local boards. So they have to look into their own funding. So probably for the same purpose, this power has been extended to the local boards. Then normal schools are meant to train teachers, and these teachers were further sent to the revenue departments to do the calculations or to do the taxes, etc. Like they want the literates to be present over there. Then introduction of grant in aid to the schools along with the fees charged on the students. Now that the extension of primary education started, then local boards were given powers. Now that this and also local boards where they were trusted with raising funds. So all these things have happened. Then they introduced this grant in aid to the schools along with the fees charged on the students. Now fee system also has come into the picture. Then extending the benefits of primary education to backward classes. Yes, Hunter Commission started with that. So who are these backward classes and also tribes and lower strata people? They were exempted from paying fee. Now here, the basic main agenda is to extend education to these people also. So Hunter Commission extended benefits of primary education to backward classes, to tribal people, and they were exempted from paying the fee. Please do remember Hunter Commission. Then setting up of night schools was also happened because as an adult, they had to do the early morning works and etc. So without that, they cannot have this livelihood. So these schools were part of night schools established as a part of adult education. Then establishing special schools and colleges. So this also proposed for establishing certain special schools and colleges for children of royal families. So see, as it established the special schools for children of royal families and uh, princesses, this extended the benefits of primary education to backward classes, including aboriginal tribes and low classes. So as now as that they have their own schools, the extending they extended this extra to the other backward classes also. So the reason behind this was to add this also, that princes and children of royal families shall be given special education. Now, national policy on education. So this national program of action 1992. This happened in 1992. What is this program of action? So program of action is this India became this child right of child's act of 1899. Sorry, 1989, where India became a signatory. India became a signatory to the UN. Okay, UN Convention came up with this program of action in 1992, where India became a signatory to Rights of Child for which was proposed in 1989. As India has become a signatory to this convention, the main part of the signatory is compulsory primary education. So as it has become a signatory, now it falls on the India's government to come up with a compulsory primary education schemes and policies. So Decentralization and Compulsory Education Act. Now what is it? 73rd and 74th Amendment led for the devolution of power to the grassroots levels, right? The panchayat system, grassroots level, state system, or municipalities. Then this point of action 1992 was made soon after, and revision to national policy on education 1993. So this both provided for the decentralization of power. So with decentralization of power, education has become compulsory. So now that education have become compulsory, but what happened meanwhile? This devolution of power was slow, as it was it was being under this unitary spaceship. It was very hard for the states, for the grassroots, for the panchayats, for the municipalities to to adjust from this shift of power. So this shift was very slow. So now what happened? This education acts of the state did not make it compulsory. So as now they had lot of things in mind to look after, this compulsory education mark was not done properly. As it did not cover entire state and only certain pockets where there were establishments, only those were looked into. As because state was too busy with this shift of power or transfer of power. So it was only looked in where the establishments were already existing, and it was easy, kind of easy, not too easy. It was kind of easy for them to focus on those regions only. Uh, because it did not have time to establish these institutions in places where it has not been there. So no conditions were properly created, and education became part of concurrent list. Now in 1976, now that it has become part of concurrent list, the state legislatures have already been exist. So, but for in order for the center to look into the things, the center needed statutory rights to extend policies in education. So, with 73rd and 74th Act, Constitution Amendment Acts, this transfer of power, as education has become a concurrent list, part of concurrent list, and state was too busy for not looking into the establishments. This transfer or education for all concept, which was signed through UN Convention, Rights of Children Act 1989, could not happen as per the signatory rules or expectations. So what happened? The center needed statutory powers to amend anything. Then let us talk about education commissions. These are very important. So if you are reading for your next coming UG entrances or UGC net UGC net exam or your UPSC or your groups or any state programs, these education commissions you have to remember. So there's no other deal than to remember, because you've got only one work to do, which is to remember such things, because this is a part of learning. Now, what are these education commissions? First commission was Radhakrishnan Commission, which is established in 1948 under the chairmanship of Radhakrishnan. So this did what? This did to reconstruct the university education to meet the demands. So as that we've been under colonial power, now that they thought to restructure the education system, which would take in the scientific, technical, and manpower requirements. So this introduced the 10 plus 2 structure in pre-university stage. What is pre-university stage? 10 plus 2, matriculation plus 2. We have plus 1 plus 2, right? So 10 plus 2 structure at pre-university stage. Earlier, it was not existing. Then correction of extreme specialization in courses. So it led for the extreme specialization in certain courses, which would in turn help in the development of our nation. Then development of research, like extensive researches in areas like agriculture, commerce, law, medicine, education, science and tech, business, public administration, and industrial relation. So it recommended to construct university education, then introduction of 10 plus 2, then extreme specialization and development in areas of research. What are these areas of research? Agriculture, commerce, law, medicine, education, science, tech, business, public administration, and industrial relation. Now, what happens is reforms in examination system through assessment. It also introduced this reform of assessment system. Then promotion of students' welfare by means of scholarship. So if there's any meritorious students, in order to encourage them to enrolling in this such courses, they were given scholarships, fellowships to encourage the merit, to encourage them to work on to more, to understand more, to learn more. Then develop familiarity with three languages. What are these three languages? Regional language, federal language, and English language at university stage. So university education shall be based on three languages of their regional, federal, and English. So then establishment of rural universities to meet the rural reconstruction in industry and agriculture. These are all the proportions or the recommendations made by Radhakrishnan Education Committee. Then establishment of universities as autonomous bodies to meet new responsibilities. New responsibilities are to what? To establish scientific learning, to establish increase in technology, okay, and establish university UGC for allotting grants and incorporation. So University Grants Commission to look into grants and incorporate this various tactics with changing times. So university education in concurrent list. So it suggested to incorporate education as a concurrent list, taking away from the state list. So these are the recommendations of Radhakrishnan Committee. So next are recommendations by Mudaliar Commission. So now Mudaliar Commission, what it did come up with? So it said that there is a need to reorganize secondary education. Radhakrishnan Committee proposed for 10 plus 2 and university level and so on, UGC grants, fellowship, etc. So Mudaliar Commission has came up with, it was established in 1952. This is a second education commission. So this proposed for reorganization of secondary education. Then reduction of total duration of school course from 12 to 11 years. And transfer the control of secondary school leaving examination from university to constitute board specially for the secondary education. So earlier that the every 10 plus 2 was also under university level. Now Mudaliar Commission recommended that if we transfer this secondary school, leaving the university to the separate, establishing a separate boards, then this would reduce burden on universities, and universities were led to focus on other developmental and research and tactics. Sorry, and research and improving education system. So the secondary board was to be constituted. This idea was by Mudaliar Commission. Then introduction of multi-purpose school in higher education courses. So this basically about secondary education. Mudaliar is about secondary education. Second commission, secondary education. Remember. Then Kotari Commission. This is the famous one. So Kotari Commission was established, sorry, was put up by in 1964 by MC Chagla, who is a Union Education Minister under the chairmanship of Kotari. So this led toward education at all stages, in every aspect, not just learning and writing, but in every aspect of skill or this aptitude, attitudes, and etc. So education developed at every stages, and internal transformation is education to relate it to the life. So this here now they propose for education has to be based on near life experiences. They should not be cut away from near life or life aspects, and make science education an integral part of school education. So science has to be made compulsory and integral to the school education. Then improve teaching at university level, and work experience should be an integrated part of all general education. So just not just that with they were imparted knowledge, but the work experience shall also be made understood to the pupil. So this was to be an integral part of general education. Then vocational education to be provided at both lower and higher secondary stages. Then higher education was to have 1/3 of enrollment in vocational courses. Now that it came up with the targets. So the Kotari Commission, uh, other than recommending how the education system has to be, it also came up with the targets that higher education shall have 1/3 enrollment in vocational courses also. So common school system with equal access to children from all social strata to be promoted. So this is an interesting or the crucial point recommended by the Kotari Commission. So what did they say? There has to be a common school system where everyone must be allowed, every children must have equal access to the school system, and develop moral and spiritual values, including social services. So schools shall be a space of learning for both and development of moral attitudes, spiritual attitudes, and having this helping nature towards the other people. And commission accepted 10+2 at secondary and higher secondary stages, followed by first degree course of a duration of not less than 3 years. So this is basically has become 10+2+3. So 10+2+3 education system by Kotari Commission. Then raising budget, it suggested for the government to raise budget, budget allocation to the education by which was existing 2.9% to 6%. Imagine the amount of share they have increased. Imagine this in the perspective of 100 crores, 1,000 crores. So to raise the budget in education was proposed by Kotari Commission. Remember, it's an MCQ. I hope you all remember things which are important. And if I say it's important, so it is important for your competitive exam, but the whole lecture is important for you to develop as a graduate in political science. So it proposed to raise budget in education from existing 2.9% to the 6%. This is a huge, this number is huge if we consider it in big, big amount. Then yes, National Education Policy of 1968. First National Education Policy, NEP. You might ask me this question, why do I have to learn education policies? What's the importance? Especially with NEP 2020 and the outcry around it, you have also must learn all the policies around education, all the commissions and the recommendations. So this is very crucial not just as a discipline of disciple of political science, but also as being a citizen of India. You must also remember, because education is a right, that everybody, education for all is a right. Then first education policy, yes, during Indira Gandhi government, Congress government. Then what happened? It's earlier before this, a resolution was passed in 1964 by Congress member MP Siddeshwar Prasad, who criticized the government for not paying enough attention to the education, and center lacked a uniform vision and definite philosophy for education. So he, in 1964, as being a member of parliament, put up this proposal of resolution of moving a bill where he criticized the government's notion or government's attention to the education, that government is not interested in making any policies related to the education or to uplift people, downtrodden societies or backward classes, by educating them. So this led to the formulation of national education policy in 1968. Now what happened? This is a national and coordination of state policies towards education. So 1968 is first policy. Then this seven-member committee, Education Commission under UGC chairperson, DS Kotari Commission was established. Then national school system, they called for a concept of national school system where all students, irrespective of caste, creed, and sex, all would have access to education. So a national school system has to be established where shall not discriminate. It shall not discriminate people based on their and race, and sex. So they should have access to education. So this national education policy came up with that proposal. Then this also called for educational structure of 10 plus 2 plus 3. We have read it in Kotari Commission already. Then use of mother tongue as a medium of teaching in early years. So mother tongue shall be the medium of teaching. So mother tongue shall be the medium of teaching, and strengthening the research in universities. So they called for this universities shall look into research procedures or research establishments where they would be used for the development of the education policy in nation. Then proper program of action was not brought out. Although the National Education Policy in 1969 was established and policy was made, but no proper result has happened through it. Why? Because no funds. And this period also saw many outcries in the nation. Okay, we were going through these phases of non-constitutions or state structures, state constitutionals were at risk, etc. So this Kendriya but only best thing happened was education was in state list here. Sorry, it's not the best thing, but education was under state list in here. That's why center could not do it. And under considering this all these provisions, government established schools, central schools were set up, which are Kendriya Vidyalay, under this national education policy in 1968. So it was not implemented because no budget allocation. Then education was in state system. That's why center had very little say in it. And the best thing was Kendriya Vidyalaya and central schools were established based on this education policy, 1968. The next national education policy, 1986. You can remember 1968, 86, very easy. So now what happened? 86, during same Congress government, it was change of leadership, Rajiv Gandhi. So now what happened? Enrollment, this is a basic study. Enrollment in elementary schools increased from 42% to 94, in 1951 to 94% in 1999. So with education policies and with all the committee recommendations and India's UN signatory led to the improvement of elementary education enrollment, and greater emphasis was also laid on secondary education, higher education, and universities. So, national education policy was not just looking into the elementary education, but it was also looking into higher education, secondary education, and university level of education under Rajiv Gandhi government. And assessment, let us assess 1968 policy. So what happened? It showed earlier goals were largely inactive, that we've read there only because lack of funds. So due to lack of funds, it was not properly implemented or not properly looked into. And the larger part of country's population is in rural areas. So in spite of being larger part of population in rural areas, the schools were established within a kilometer. Okay, so this was achieved, this assessment of 1968 policy, and state has adopted because 10 plus 2 plus 3, because the national education policy of 1968 called for this proposal of 10 plus 2 plus 3, which was also done by Kothari Commission. And financial and organizational support for the education system was lacking. So still here also there is no funding. And as proposed by Kothari Commission to improve the budget allocations from, I think, 2.3 to 6%, nothing could change properly. Nothing could be addressed properly. So financial and organizational support of education system was lacking. Then what are the problems? Erosion of political social life, goals of socialism, secularism, democracy were under increasing strain. So there's been a lot of outcry to the values of democracy, to the values of socialism, to the principles of secularism. So as there was the erosion, or there was conflicts, or there was no stable period between social and political life, this also led for the decrease of or increase in strain or putting them at risk. Okay, common language. Socialism, secularism, and democracy. Then both state and central governments, as there were no proper budget allocations, so they were to seek financial support from private players. Now that they've tried to consider these private players and into the government sector. So private players to complete government funds which have been not allocated. Now, the promotion of privatization and the continued emphasis of secularism and science. Now, just that private players have been allowed, this privatization, promotion of privatization, and continued emphasis on secularism started. Now called Operation Blackboard in 1897, in 1987. It's a centrally funded program. So, what is Operation Blackboard? Operation Blackboard is provide primary schools with minimum necessary facilities, not some high five or not some to reach any, all the necessities must be filled. But this blackboard main agenda was at least to have minimum necessaries like a blackboard, washrooms, places for the pupils to sit, or some shed or some building to organize or arrange classes. So, what is Operation Blackboard? To provide primary schools in the nation with the minimum required necessary services, and restructuring and reorganization of teacher education 1987. Now, what happens in this? So, in this institutional infrastructure and pre-service in-service training of elementary and secondary school teachers. So, the school teachers are being trained to improve their teaching uh, level in line with this infrastructure building. So for a betterment of the society. It is happened in 1987. Then national program or nutritional support to primary education 1985. This is midday meal cooking. So this cooked meal is provided every day for children classes 1 to 5 in all government and government aided local body schools. So if we look behind this scheme, so the main agenda of this scheme is to get children to the school. So what is the main source of parents to send children to the work or to do labor activities? For them to get money and food to feed them, right? So now that this their lunch has been adjusted by the government through this national program or nutritional support to primary education, now that this food has been arranged, so parents started to send their children at least in the in at least to get them one meal lunch. So in a way, this enrollment increased. So with this scheme of cooked meals, it outcried a call for people or students to enroll, which was successful. So District Primary Education Program, DPEP 1993. So this is decentralized planning management, improved technique, and school effectiveness. So this is basically about uh, primary education program, district level. This is to decentralize, plan, manage, and improve teaching and learning materials, and like in a source of how they are going to learn, and school effectiveness, how far the school has been successful. Then movement to educate all 2000 aimed to achieve universal primary education by 2010 through micro planning. Then NEP also focused on children with disabilities. Yes, it improved children with disabilities. They provided so that these children, even with disabilities, shall not be denied this education, primary education, especially with parents belonging to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now that the schools, the central and state government has started to raise funds through private institutions, this policy of 1986 seemed to have worked better in comparison to the policy of 1968. So funding was also available. Then education enrollment also started. The governments has diversed their funds collection. So it was not that burden, and also the education was transferred from state list to the concurrent list. So it made easy for the central government to also make amend laws, anything that will be related to the policies of education. Then school schemes such as Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, midday meal scheme, Navodaya Vidyalaya, use of IT in education were started under this act. So this has been a revolutionary step if we understand. Then comes Program of Action 1992. So this Program of Action was during Narasimha Rao government under National Education Policy only. So this led for common entrance exam on all India basis for admissions into IITs, NITs, AIEEEs, like that. Then NEP 1986 was re-examined in 1992 to look like how far it has worked, and does it need any provisions of change. The re-examination of NEP laid emphasis on expansion of secondary education. So the previously it was the main focus was on primary education. Now this led for the shift in focus to the secondary education. So with focus on education for minorities and women continue to be priority to include them so that their could be uplifted for the betterment of the society. And importance to the development of non-formal education through centrally sponsored scheme to educate school dropouts so that they can work and still go to the school. So this informal education concept has started, which would enroll more and more dropouts who did in the lieu of earning or no social backing or economic backing. Now they were also encouraged or allowed to do this, complete their education through providing facilities like centrally sponsored schemes. This is, they called it non-formal education. Then right to education. So what is right to education? Right to education, the constitution was amended. This 86th Amendment Act inserted Article 21A, free and compulsory education for all. So this free and compulsory education for all children of age group 6 to 14. So no matter what, they all shall be not denied of basic education. So this is their right. This is their primary right to get education. So right of children to free and compulsory education act 2009 also added that this every child has a right to full-time elementary education of satisfactory and equitable equality. So it made sure that children shall not be denied of their education because it is their right. It's imparted in the constitution. So this is an important act, 86th Constitutional Amendment Act, Article 21A. National Education Policy 2020, interesting one. So this has been chaired by Kasturi Rangan. So this they submitted the report in 2018. Then it's a four-part national education policy which covers school education part one, then higher education part two. And this is basically divided with to target to add everything or to focus on various multiple things with evolving technology and all, changing scenarios and special attention to certain topics. So other factors, area of focus such as adult education, promoting Indian languages, online education, and part four discusses policies implementation. So this Kasturi Rangan Committee, National Education Policy 2020, gave in fourfold step of national education policy. So this draft education policy was followed. This was put up in public for various recommendations and consultations. So this draft was put up and revision. What are the recommendations that has been done through the 2020 is revision of curriculum and pedagogical structure from 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system. So to optimize students based on their cognitive development. So this in a way adds this education, this curriculum, not just learning and writing, but also help them develop their cognitive ability also. So this proposed for 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Then 2020 July, this national education policy was approved by the Union Cabinet. The new system that is aligned with the aspiration and goals. So this NEP 2020 was basically made for this 21st century to get to add in the goals, aspirations with changing world and with changing technology. So this introduced a 4-year undergraduate program. So now, earlier it was 10 plus 2 plus 3. Now this introduced compulsory 4-year undergraduate degree and MPhil was taken out of the system and regulation and academic standards for both private and public higher education. So this included both the institutions to making them improve the education standards and universalization of early childhood education from age 3 to 6 by 2030. So this is a target. Let us hope this target reaches much earlier than the 2030 year. So in future, if we cross by again, we might be discussing this, whether the target has been reached or not. And new school curriculum with coding and vocational studies from school 6. And interesting one, child mother tongue being used as a medium of instruction till grade 5. There has been a lot of outcry for this because this pushes people further backward. Okay? So there's been an outcry by the opposition for this mother tongue being used as a medium of instruction until grade 5. And features of national education policy are 5 plus 3 plus 4, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Then foundational stage, 5 years. Preparatory stage, 3 years. Middle age, 3 years. High school stage, 4 years. Covering grades 9, 10, 11. So this 5 is foundational stage, 3 is preparatory stage. Then another 3 is middle stage. And the high school stage is 4 years, covering 9, 10, 11, 12. So this has to be 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Then achieve universal foundation literacy and numeracy in primary schools by 2025. So yeah, next year. So rather than the 2023 target, hopefully we might have discussion with some other batch or you or some or me discussing about this. So let us see, hopeful to achieve the target. Then Ministry of Human Resources, Resource Development shall set up. This is the ministry that is responsible for the national mission on foundational literacy and numeracy. So the MHRD is responsible to look into this target. Then public and private schools, what are these? Except the schools that are managed, aided, controlled by the central government. These are all public and private schools. And the gross enrollment ratio. So they came up with a target, another target of gross enrollment ratio from preschool to secondary education should be 100% by 2030. So this is a target. What is gross enrollment ratio? So it is ratio in total enrollment in education, regardless of age, to the official population in the given year. So that given year, how much soever population, the educated certain age group population, which are supposed to be enrolled in that classes, this shall be improved, that everybody in that age group shall be enrolled for that classes where their age belongs. So that is gross enrollment ratio. Next, medium of instruction until at least grade 5, but preferably till grade 8 or beyond, has to be their mother tongue. So there's been an outcry for this. Then three language formula will continue to be implemented in schools, where two languages shall be native to India. So they can opt for foreign language as their third language. And this especially this coming up in the NEP 2020, there's been an outcry for this because it denies, it causes more division among the privileged and underprivileged. And policy seeks to standardize school curriculum from Indian Sign Language across the India. So now the sign language curriculum has also to be focused on. Then Government of India shall constitute a gender inclusion fund to provide equitable and quality education to girls and transgender students. Not just girls, so transgender students also shall be given equitable and quality education under gender inclusion fund. Like separate fund has to be set up. This shall not be included with the sole fund or education budget that's been allocated, but an extra only for this purpose. So policy suggests establishing school complexes consisting of secondary and other schools offering lower grades of education. Like there has a school structure, school complex where students of all secondary and the other schools offering lower grades of education must be there. Then greater resource efficiency and more effective functioning, coordination, leadership, governance, and management of schools in a cluster. So in a way, this reduces the burden and the schools will be allowed to function in a cluster, which will look into the organization, leadership, and governance. And this will lead to more effective functioning and use of resources effectively rather than dividing it among various different institutions. Then all education institutions shall be held to similar standards of audit and disclosed as a non-profit entity. So these education institutions, everybody shall be disclosed as a not-for-profit institutions. So, and everybody shall have a same standard of auditing system. Then surplus they get through shall be invested back into the educational sector, either through research development or either through establishing new complexes or establishing new schools or providing facilities. All higher education institutions shall aim to be multidisciplinary by 2040. This shall look into the every multidisciplines, not just singular ones. So focus on all activities by 2040. Then gross enrollment ratio to increase from 26.3 to 50% by 2035. So this is like the percentage of age group and all shall be enrolled in the schools and colleges. Then higher education institutions shall have the flexibility to offer master programs of 2 years for those who have completed a 3-year undergraduate programs. So now they have given extra power, and 4-year undergraduate program or 5-year integrated bachelor's and master program. So it either shall have to be 3+2 or 4 and 5-year integrated, where both masters and bachelors. If you are doing a 4-year integrated course, then you will be allowed for a master's if you do a 5-year integrated course. Then you'll be given this both UG and a PG degree. Then high performing Indian universities shall be encouraged, yes, because the resources have been coming in by setting up campuses in other countries. And national research foundation shall be established to facilitate merit-based but equitable and peer-reviewed research funding. Then policy stays at the center and states shall work together. Yes, to increase public investment in education to 6% from current 4%. So policy will stay with the center and states shall come together, work uh, in order to increase the investment to 6%. And early childcare education and development by including a play-based multifaceted curriculum and gain multidimensional knowledge and universal skills and lay foundation of higher education. So this is the NEP 2020. So there are still educational policy require great political will and allocation of finances. So policy at international level, which happens irrespective of will of states and individual, has rather increased in the sphere of interstate and intercultural relations. So NEP 2020 is little more focused rather than the NEP 1968 or 86. So I hope you all understood what is NEP for 2020 and why there has been an outcry, as it causes a basic divide among the different social statuses. So you have to understand. There's been many commissions. So these commissions also shall be remembered. It would be good if you remember. I hope everybody is clear. So I think it's the last class. So this is an education policy. We have read reservation policies and also please to go through the slides, understand, read, remember, and this is useful for both theory and MCQs. So gross enrollment ratio in education. Please read it again. So what is gross enrollment ratio? Is ratio of total enrollment in education regardless of age to the total population in the given year. So GRE, sorry, GER, like no matter what their age or specificities, they all